Maybe you look around you at the world that we have today and the society that we have today, and you're grateful for all the amenities and the creature comforts in ways that have never existed before. But maybe you're also reminded of a time where that effort, that experience of having to put into work to get those things mattered. And maybe you think sometimes when you look at the current generation, maybe they need a little bit more of that. My guest today has taken the world and the internet by storm, discussing these very topics. His name is John Kotridis, better known as GenXJono, across all social media platforms, and he is shattering the record for any guest that has been on this show for total subscribers and followers at nearly 2 million total subscribers across all platforms. An expert on everything Generation X, saying all the things that we perhaps think to ourselves and want to say to the new generations. He does that, and he does it in a beautiful, sincere, comedic way that makes us all have a smile on our face when we get to listen to our favorite songs or watch our favorite movies from the past, and also maybe educate future generations at the same time. Without further ado, John, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me today.
I love being here, man. Thank you so much for reaching out.
Before we dive into kind of some of the content of your channel and just your backstory personally, I always like to ask whenever I interview someone that's in the YouTube space, what made you decide to go down this journey? Because especially for people of our demographic, our age range, I mean, for me anyway, it took me a while to even accept YouTube as a medium and to watch it and engage with it. But what made you want to take a journey and not only watch it, but actually be a content creator?
Well, I think I've always engaged with different technologies that came along. I mean, I remember, I always joke that we're the 8-track to Bluetooth generation. We've kind of gone all the way through it. And every step along the way, I've really embraced it. I loved, going from tapes to CDs and from CDs to electronic media. I remember Napster and LimeWire and ICQ and AOL chat rooms and Yahoo Messenger. And every step along the way, honestly, just finding ways to connect with more people and making the world smaller as we went along. I enjoy the medium. I realize that it can be isolating if used incorrectly, and I think some of our younger generations have challenges with that. But really, COVID was the trigger for me, and I think a lot of people, in that we found ourselves as Gen Xers specifically with two abnormalities. Number one, we were isolated, a lot of us, for the first time in our lives. I mean, of course, there's introverts out there and those that choose, due to personality traits, to isolate, but I think we're a fairly social generation of people. We see bikes in the front yard, we run out to see who's playing in the back. So we found ourselves kind of isolated. And then the second thing was that we found ourselves not working. Yeah. And, a lot of us have been working since 9, 10, 11, 12, bike routes, babysitting, after school jobs, summer jobs. So I just started with my kids, trying to kill time, trying to be social, going on TikTok, going on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and just doing silly things. And it resonated, I guess.
That's a great point and a great segue into kind of my next question for you. So once you decided, and it sounds like it was kind of partially a desire just to have that human connection in a different way during a time, like you said, when we couldn't. Was it obvious to you right from the get-go that if you were going to do content for any social media, that it was going to be about generational discussions, or did that organically make itself apparent to you?
It was an organic evolution. In the early days of TikTok, a lot of our kids migrated to it, and it was all, I had my youngest was 9 at the time, and it was silly dances and silly trends, and it was me connecting with her. But then there would be different things that would play out just organically, and the content started to shift to my life as a dad, my life as a husband. And then one day, just surreptitiously, wrong word, not surreptitiously, but just by happenstance, she said in conversation, Dad, what makes you think your generation's so tough? And it kind of just stuck with me all day. And that night, I was just outside on the porch, and I turned the camera on. No editing, no pausing, no scripting. Just turned the camera on, turned on the TikTok, and started talking. And we're tough because we're a generation who played on playgrounds designed by people who hated children. we're tough because we weren't the main characters of our story or any story. We were neither seen nor heard. And just started to, and that video did really well and people started engaging. And it kind of took off from there.
Well, and for people that somehow haven't seen your content in GenXJono, I mean, that was what really drew me into you and your stuff. Because I'm a sucker, kind of a historian with everything 70s, 80s, 90s, you know, with sports and music and pop culture in general. And so if I see a video that's talking about, I think that was the first one of your videos that I saw was talking about some of the hits from the 80s and music. And that's fine. Like you can watch that. But what made me a subscriber, and I'm sure this is true for hundreds of thousands of your other subscribers, was your excitement. You seem just so genuinely sincere and like you just love what you're talking about.
Every generation, once you get old enough, hopefully, will experience nostalgia. We're different and other generations see it. So real quick, just a tutorial. If you were born between 1965 and 1980, the way the sociologists currently see the breakdown, that's Gen X. Right. So before 1965 is historically baby boomers. After 1980 is historically millennials. But there's been a creation of micro generations. Generation Jones on the older side, Zennials on the younger side, which really has been created by people that are in those other generations saying, you know what, I'm less a boomer and more Gen X. How do I sit at that table?
Yeah.
Because Zennials aren't millennials, the Zennials aren't Gen Xers pretending to be millennials. They're millennials that say, no, I have more in common with Gen X.
It's true. Everybody wants to be Gen X.
I mean, to an extent, Generation
No, it actually really
Jones,
is true.
It's not a bunch of Gen Xers saying, no, I really want to be a boomer. It's boomers that say, no, I tend to relate more to the Gen X. So
really
we
true.
are truly a little different in that we're that bridge generation. Growing up with no tech. And millennials are trying to lay claim to this, but it's really us. The Atari 2600 came out in 1978. I was 8 years old. You know, before that, we were really experiencing a boom in electronics, but it was a Mattel handheld football game. Oh, by the way, that we played with friends, not really alone. Or being at the arcade, which we turned into a social thing because if you were good at Pac-Man, there were 9 people around you with quarters up watching you play. Yeah. It was all social, you know, so we grew into that. We have arguably the most popular music in history. In 1980, you would not have, as a 10-year-old kid in 1980, there's not a chance in hell I would have spent all day listening to music from the 30s and 40s. It didn't happen for anybody. But my 14-year-old daughter's entire playlist is 70s and 80s music, which is exactly the same time gap.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're watching our movies. They're watching our television shows. They're wearing our fashions. It was an explosion of pop culture because it was the perfect mix of enough technology to show us what everybody else was interested in, but not so much that we were all experiencing our own curated experience. We all were watching the same thing. We all were listening to roughly the same songs, like it or not. It's what came out of the radio. But there was stuff coming. So the generation before us didn't have a lot of variety either, but they didn't have the technology to push out what was there. The generation after us had way more choices, so they weren't watching the same stuff. We grew up with 2 radio stations, 3 channels on TV, and the ability to all be watching and listening at the same time.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing you just touched on, John, because I haven't thought about it like that until you just said that. But it really is kind of the perfect mix. It's kind of like Goldilocks, right? Like, you know, it's just right to where you had enough access to technology. We had enough access to variety to keep it interesting and to find out what we liked as individuals, but not too much to where just get overloaded and you really don't like anything.
You either don't like anything or there's algorithms specifically with a specific intent to feed you either what it wants you to like or what you already like. Like we're all living in little mini echo chambers right now. We're not being forced to listen to Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton singing Islands in the Stream, even though that might not necessarily have been our genre of music. I know every word to those songs because it wasn't with changing the station. It was going to come up on the next one soon enough anyway. Just we sat through it.
I actually heard that song at a gas station last week and it made me really happy. I really did.
Yeah.
Anyway,
the other technological advances is, think about it, 30 or 40 years before we were born, cars, transportation, access. We literally are at that zenith of access to so much across almost every aspect of it, but not too much. Even freedom. The generation before us, kids were working in factories. Kids were, we had freedom as kids, the ability to enjoy that freedom, but also weren't overloaded with the dangers that were in the world because we just weren't aware of them. So
let me ask you
perfect
this.
Mix there.
No, it really is. And I could ramble at you more because I think for my head, you just unlocked the whole thing because I think it's a perfect mix in like 5 or 6 different sectors. But do you feel, it's a little weird for me, and I don't know if this is because I'm having a midlife crisis or what, but I don't feel old. Is it weird to you that we are like kind of in that authoritative age range to where like we're the doctors, we're the lawyers, we're the judge? Is that weird at all?
So the fact that we would say, I'm 56 and I use the words midlife crisis. Now I be great to live to 112. I don't know that it's in
I don't know
cards.
if I want to live that long, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I do. I'll stay as long as God's willing to keep me on this earth. As long as I'm happy, healthy, and not being a nuisance to too many people. I like it here. The funny thing is, you mentioned midlife crisis. I'm 56 years old. I'm in no rush to grow older, but I don't think I'm going to see 112. So long past a midlife crisis. But I use in my content the expression and the hashtag X years old. So Generation X is a variable. They didn't know what to call us. The baby boomers, silent gen, greatest gen, they all had titles for their generation based on things. We didn't have that, so they just threw X at us. And I kind of felt along the way that a lot about us was variable in that way. Age being one of those things. We were a generation of children being told to act like adults at the snap of a finger. I expect you to behave like a young gentleman or a little lady. And parents literally expected us to act years beyond our age at will. Because that was the expectation. We worked and were respectful and had work ethic at a very young age. Our age has always been variable. And now we dress and act and have hairstyles and musical expressions and all kinds of things that maybe are younger than our actual age. We looked younger as kids. We looked older as kids. We look younger as non-kids. No, I don't feel old, but I don't know that I ever felt young either.
Yeah, agree. Well said. One of my mentors, and it's always told me that the definition of old is 15 years older than however old you are at that time. And the older I get, the more true that for me, it's probably 25 instead of 15, but still, it kind of tracks a little bit.
I can see that. Yeah. Although here's the irony. I've held the door open. I hold the door open for anybody. It's being polite. But I've held the door open out of respect for someone older than me. And as they walk through, I realize they're probably 10 years younger. So the definition for age, it works both ways for me. I'll be watching television and be like, ooh, how the heck old is that person? And they're younger than me. I'm as old as Mr. Roper was on Three's Company when that show started. The definition of old is anyone but me.
Well, that's true. And that's been one of your recent topics is celebrities that think of as old that are actually younger than we are right now, or were younger than we are right now. And I sent you an email. And I'd put a comment on your deal there. Hyman Roth in The Godfather Part 2. The whole thing of the movie was that he's decrepit. He's so old. Look at the birthday cake in that movie. It's 60. It's crazy.
60's old in my head, though, until I get there. 60 is old. You're the last person still at work ready for retirement. You saw those people. They were done. Now 60 is like, that's not what's, first of all, retirement. I'm going to work till the morning of my death, probably. Maybe they'll let me out early that day. I don't know, but it's changed.
Yeah.
But 60 used to be old. I'm older than Abe Vigoda. If you tell me that Fish on Barney Miller wasn't old, you're delusional or lying. The man was old. The man might have been born old. I don't know. I'm not that. It's not that I don't think I'm that. I'm not that. And we can't be friends if you don't agree.
You look young to me, brother. You look
okay, there we go.
Rocking. That's why I'm depressed. My camera's down because we have similar style too. So just for the record too, I have a question for you, totally off topic of this stuff, but I know you're Greek ethnicity, correct?
Yep.
And proud Greek American.
Yes, sir.
So I'm half Lebanese. So us Lebanese folk, we feel like that the cuisine, the Mediterranean cuisine, we feel like we share it with the Greek community. Do you disagree with that, or do you?
No, I agree that you eat our food.
I had a feeling you might say something like that.
Yeah, no, that tracks.
Well, it's funny because you guys, it's the dolmades, and we call it grape leaves, but it's the same thing. So,
Dolmades, yes. They're
Yeah. So
awesome.
yeah. Anyway.
No,
All
you're
right.
definitely allowed to share in our cuisine. I think that's awesome. Don't get it twisted. It's ours.
I mean, it's well, anyway, you have good taste, I'll say. Or we have good taste. How about that?
There you go.
Anyway,
And
I'm
that's the
curious.
other thing to touch on, right?
Yeah.
I'm Greek American. My parents immigrated in the 60s. I was born in the 70s. My parents spoke broken English, worked in a diner, grew up in a small town, not a lot of access to a lot of stuff. But the way I grew up as a first generation kid of immigrant parents in small town Western New York, lower to middle class, is almost ridiculously less different. It is still so relatable to someone that grew up in an urban experience, full-blown American or black or poor or white, or it doesn't matter. I've got people messaging me from Great Britain, from Australia, New Zealand, France, saying we grew up the same. And prior to the internet, prior to mass distribution of pop culture, we all grew up so similar.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean about that, a shared experience that's so incredible. All of everything coalesced into that being possible. And I'm excited about that. I would not trade being, I would not be young today if it meant I couldn't have lived through the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
I know,
it's not a fair trade-off. I wouldn't take it.
I agree. It's funny, and you just made me think of a point too. So I was watching every once in a while, thinking about it, like in Urban Cowboy, when Bud goes to the big city and all that's kind of a big send off and all that. And I was thinking with the internet today, kids almost like if you grow up in a small town or like in one region, it doesn't feel like you're not as connected to that region as you would have been in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, because you can teleport yourself to wherever you want to go on the internet. Whereas, so like, if you're in a small town, I don't know, Fallon, Nevada, or, like me, Gunnersville, Alabama, you can feel like you've been to New York without ever having been to New York. Does that make sense? So
it does, sure.
Yeah.
And yet, we bridged that gap of isolation anyway. The kid that moved to your town, the big blue marble forcing you to have a pen pal with somebody, the kid that vacationed that you met up with. We found ways to socialize. If I say, my best example of this is if I told you we're going to go play some playground games and we got to figure out who's who, and I told you to put your foot in, and I started down with, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, or Inca Binka Bottle of Ink, Engine number 9, any number of those nursery playground game rhymes, we all know them. How? There wasn't a book. They never played it on the radio. We didn't see it on TV. 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, 4. It's the new kid came in town and we were on the playground and they knew one we didn't, so we learned it from them.
And
people brought their... Yeah. Or you had a cousin that was visiting and he got to play with everybody. Our socialization was ours being transported to different places back then. Shared stories, shared rumors. And again, wouldn't have been possible but for the advancements in travel, the telephone. So the technological advances we got to enjoy made that possible, but we weren't hindered by
I think we should be called
technology.
The sweet spot generation. The more I think about it here, it's the sweet spot between everything.
So many ways. Psychologists are looking into Gen X, even in terms of our neglect. They're finding that we had the perfect level of neglect to create adults that are able to think on their feet, that are able to problem solve, that are able to compartmentalize, that are able to function in the face of adversity and anxiety. A lot of Gen Xers say, I'm not afraid of anything. I'm Gen X, or I don't have anxiety. I'm Gen X. I think that's selling us short. We have at least as much fear or anxiety as any other generation. We're able to function in spite of it.
Yeah. It's a great blessing. It's a beautiful thing. I am curious too. So of your demographics of the people that engage with the con, obviously I'm guessing the vast majority is Generation X, but do you get a lot of young people that are...
It skews younger than I am. My biggest group is 40s. So 45 to 50 is by far where my bell curve goes. Okay. Then it's almost equidistant past that. And a lot of people say, well, I thought you were my age the first time. When I'm like, great, good, keep thinking that. But yes, I'm even getting young kids now saying, can you, the question is, were you really allowed to be on your own? And I'm like, yes. It wasn't an allowance. We weren't allowed to do things. Our parents, I don't like the neglect. I like it as a joke. My parents loved me dearly. Yeah. I'm still blessed to have my mom in my life. It wasn't neglect. It was the times we lived in. They didn't spank me or raise me with physical discipline because they were abusive to me. It was the times we were raised in. That was the way things were done then. For right or for wrong, I don't like judging the past with today's eyes and sensibilities. It's not fair to the past. So we weren't neglected. Life was what it was. But young people are constantly asking me, how is it possible that you could have been 10 and your parents didn't know where you were? Weren't able to contact you in the case of an emergency? I'm like, because. The answer you're looking for is because. That's all.
It's just the way it was.
Just the way it was. Why did 9-year-olds work in factories? It's because that's because no child labor laws. Things were different at different times in history. And sometimes those differences were good, sometimes they were bad, and sometimes they were both. And then there's those few times when it just was what it was, regardless of if it was good, bad, or other. It is what it is.
Yeah. Well, and all those experiences, I guess for anybody, and I'm curious how it plays out for this generation now and kind of the last 30 years here, because I know it doesn't appeal to me, but obviously I'm biased. But whether it's good or bad, that's what builds you. And I think we have a generation that is uniquely adaptable, like you said, to realize that, number one, and to have the empathy to understand that and capitalize on it. One of the biggest things to me, and I've talked about this just rambling by myself on my podcast before, I miss the arguments that you used to be able to have, to where, like you were talking about earlier, we didn't know what the definitive answer was. So you could have one of your buddies would definitively think that this person had the touchdown record or that person did, and you could argue about it for years. Now somebody just Google it in 3 minutes. Yeah. And access to that is
and AI is changing that even faster. Google could still drive you down the wrong rabbit hole, but Chat GPT, Claude, all of that's really changing the game. We knew what we knew and didn't know what we didn't know. And the things we knew, we still know. If I asked you about a report that you did in 10th grade, and you're like, I did a report on the moon landing, you could probably still teach a class on it today. It's probably still in your memory because it took a lot to put it there. You had to research at the library. You had to take notes. You had to compile those notes into a handwritten first draft in cursive. You had to then edit that first draft and then maybe put it out on a typewriter. There was a lot involved. That level of actually maintaining knowledge doesn't exist anymore. We borrow knowledge because it's easy to come by. There's no need to retain it. I can ask Alexa again what it was I needed to know. So we borrow information at a much higher rate than we ever did before. So yeah, I miss not knowing things. I remember calling the operator. Remember dialing 0?
Oh, heck yeah.
My brothers and I were in such a big argument over what the Bionic Woman's real name was, the actress, Lindsay Wagner, that finally, since we had no one else to ask, we dialed 0 and asked the operator.
Prank calls just used to be a lot more fun too. Now that I think about it, you just made me think without all the blocking. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, how many calls do you answer if you don't know who's calling today? If you look down at your phone and see a number you don't recognize, do you answer?
I get about 50 likely spam calls every single day. Yeah.
So if you don't know who's calling, you don't answer.
No.
We grew up a civilization whose our entire job was picking up the phone when we didn't know who was calling.
Yeah.
Every single time. And 33% of the time, it probably wasn't for us anyway, but we had to pick up the phone.
That's true. And then if you're on the phone when you're a teenager with your girlfriend and your mom picks up the other line and then she hears your conversation and
or didn't hang up the other line. That's more to the case with my mom.
Yeah, mine too, actually. Yeah, you just made me think of something else too. I was talking with my stepfather, who's 82, a couple weeks ago.
So young.
Yeah. But I was talking to him, and early in my 20s, I ran a call center and all that. And we were talking about all these call centers that are calling us all the time, like you just said. And I said to him, if you think about it, you probably get more spam calls in one day now than you got in the entire decades of the 80s and the 90s combined. So it's a different world.
Access to everything is, so I do content creation full time now. That's my job. That's it. But I also will try to, I've got locally, different establishments have had me come out and do Gen X era trivia. And I'll do a mix of 4 rounds of trivia and at the same time just engage the crowd. Talk to them about what it was like. A lot of parents are there with their kids. And just this week, I said to the crowd, I go, we used to have a magic superpower as people in the 70s, 80s, and into the 90s. And that power was tell them I'm not here. Today, if somebody calls or texts you, they can see if you've left them on red. They can see if you've seen it, if it went through. They know that they've been seen and not acknowledged. If they call, they have every expectation that your phone is either in your hand, in your pocket, or nearby. If you don't answer, you've pushed them off.
Yeah.
And they realize that. When we were growing up, if somebody called that we didn't want to speak to, we whispered or signaled to the person, tell them I'm not here.
Yeah.
And that was the end of it. We didn't blow them off from their perspective. We weren't dodging their phone call from their perspective. We weren't reachable.
And then if you saw them later, you'd say, "Oh, I didn't get the message." They didn't.
Yeah, I didn't get the message. If it was work, we weren't reachable. If it was obligation, we weren't reachable. That's gone. And it started disappearing with answering machines, and then where we were accountable to things in our absence. We weren't accountable to things in our absence growing up. And I think that's a really weird thing to have lost.
It really is. Well, and back to your point too, just about the ups and downs you used to have to go through when learning a new thing. I mean, like for me, I remember that same mentor I was talking about earlier. I asked him when I was like 20, I said, is there a way for me to tell if one rental property is better than another statistically? And he said, yep. And then he just walked away, and he made me beg him to tell me for like a week. And he finally taught me how to calculate a cash on cash return. But because it went that way, I remember that story and that feeling in that moment 25 plus years later, and it stuck. And I remember things, to your point, like 20, 30 years ago. I joke about it with my family all the time. I remember stuff from 30 years ago better than I do something that happened yesterday.
And part of that is the way our brains just biologically work. Part of it is like anything else, something that's hard earned is worth keeping. And our brains know that. If you worked hard to gather information, your brain's going to hold on to it. Yeah. This is worth remembering. There's that expression, right? If it's worth remembering, we'll remember it. Today, my memories, people say to me, "Why? How do you remember all this stuff? How much of what you do is research?" I'm blessed, I guess. I remember all of it.
Yeah.
And I love remembering all of it.
It comes through, brother. That's the sincerity I'm talking about. You can tell that you're doing it off the top of the dome. It
makes me so happy. I truly mean it. If a genie popped out of the bottle and said, "Hey, you want to be 22 again?" But I would have had to have born in 2004. It's not worth the trade. Everybody gets old if we're lucky. Sooner or later, the gift that is youth is gone. But when you had that youth has to matter.
Yeah. Having said that, how do you honestly I know there's a lot of jokes and a lot of back and forth. I've seen your content you'll do, and that's some of my favorite. Actually, no, never mind. That was the first video of yours I saw, was the Mad Dog 2020 video. That's what I saw. But all jokes aside, how do you feel about the status of this current generation, people in their early 20s right now?
I feel bad for them, but I don't blame them. A lot of people throw hate on Gen Z. Both my daughters are Z. One's 14 and one is 22. They're both good kids. They both work hard. They're both also the product of their generation. We grew up coming home upset, and our parents said, don't think about it. So what's bothering you? Oh, I don't know. And you started to tell your parents, like, listen, you need to do this, this, and this. Just don't think about it right now. So the best advice they had to give us over a problem was to shut up and ignore it. Yeah. Our kids come home with a problem, and the conventional wisdom is to sit them down and allow them to express themselves ad nauseum, and we sit and we listen, and we go ahead and brainstorm. There's a time and place for both, but our kids don't know how to live in a world where they just don't think about things. They've been told their entire lives to think about it, to talk about it, to write it down, to go seek therapy for it, and to medicate for it. And like I said, all those things are good in their place, but they've lost the ability to compartmentalize. Things like phone anxiety, where young adults are afraid to pick up the phone and talk to someone. Menu anxiety, where they're afraid to sit in a restaurant and stare at a stranger in order. The ability to set their own doctor's appointments, their ability to be in social situations. Those things did not exist.
No. They really didn't. They really.
And some people, they did. No, they didn't. They didn't. We're not talking peanut allergies. I get how science works. I know people were allergic to peanuts back when we were growing up. People just didn't care. But when it comes to the 33 and a half different varieties of anxiety, no, it didn't exist because it wasn't tolerated.
I was debating if I wanted to go down that road with you, but that's a topic, and I don't want to get too dramatic.
And I say this with love. I really, truly
No, me
do.
too. Yeah, I've got so many people in my family that have severe depression or severe anxiety. And so with our generation, like you said, it wasn't talked about.
Remember when I said I didn't say we don't have anxiety and fears?
Yeah.
I said we have at least as much as everyone else.
Oh, no,
but
yeah.
we were built to function regardless.
Well, yeah, exactly. And that's where I'm going with this too is, so I think it's good that it can be acknowledged now, but it's kind of gotten to the point now where it feels like, and this is the part that we can edit out if we want, because maybe I'm getting too heavy with it. Feels like people are mistaking just having a bad day for depression, or people are mistaking being uncomfortable for clinical anxiety. And I don't know.
Sure. And here's the question though. What if they're not, right?
And that's why it's such a tough thing. Yeah.
Correct. And the answer for me is, what if they're not? Well, the answer is okay, and so what?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have this barrier, this problem, this issue. And my answer in some cases is, so what? Life doesn't care. Your mom cares, your friends care, your spouse cares. The people that love you care. Life doesn't care. So you can go down a million different ways to try to sit in it. But at the end of the day, life's not going to care. And that was the message we got more than what's currently allowed. And again, that sweet spot. If there was a serious issue, we did grow up with counselors. I do have friends that seek therapy both then and now. But like everything else we've talked about, I feel there was a sweet spot there too. Access to help, access to medications, but also that tough understanding that at the end of the day, no matter what it is you're going through, I mean, look at the expressions we grow up with. The tough get going, the going get tough.
Yeah.
What the hell does that even mean?
It feels good when you say it, though.
Yeah, rub some dirt on it. And life doesn't care. This generation has the propensity to cherry pick the best of the past and long for that while ignoring the difficulties of the past.
And it's really the
people in the
difficulties-
50s and 60s were able to buy a home on one income, at only 2 times their annual income. Yeah. And they also grew up in a world where the draft to a world war existed, or Vietnam, or polio, or smallpox. I mean, you can't take one without the other, good and bad.
It's true. Well, and I think to a lot of the points of what we're talking about, I think the perceived bad might actually be the best part, because that's what builds the character and the learning and a lot of the stuff we're talking. Other than that, we have the best music and the best movies and the best pop culture, but still.
You can go to Google to lighten things up a bit and say what movie was released today in the 80s. And one of your favorite movies will pop up almost any day of the year. I'm talking 365 days of the year, if not at least 52 times a year. Every week, an amazing movie at some point in time was released back then. Dude, whether it's The Goonies, Top Gun, Breakfast Club, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Field of Dreams, any genre you can think of, Stand By Me, across the board, whether it's sports, sentimentality, growing up, comedy, unbelievable. That is almost can't be under like, think about, and I go down the list with my daughter. I know I'm kind of all over the place here.
No,
I told my daughter, I can name you verbatim, just start Prince, Michael Jackson. I can start naming artists that are still relevant today, 40 years from when they first started. If I asked her to do the same, I said, how many artists, whether you like them or not, that are out today will still be relevant in 40 years. She goes, I don't like her, but beyond maybe Taylor Swift, she's like, I can't think of one.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, John, it's not just that people remember them from then. They're still doing the same movie remakes now. Top Gun, like you said, just watch the Axel Foley.
Not even remakes.
Yeah, well,
it's part 2, part 3. It's a sequel.
Yeah.
Remake is all well and good. We remade movies. When people are like, why do they keep remaking our stuff? I tell Gen Xers to sit down and relax. That's not new. Remaking movies and music has always been in existence. If you liked Girls Just Want to Have Fun, I got news for you. It was a cover. I mean, Pat Bennett, a lot of people did covers, and movies we watch, Color of Money. Remakes have always happened. What's cool is in an era where you aged out of Hollywood at like 40,
Yep.
Now you've got people in their 50s making sequels to movies we loved 40 years ago. It's the same actors, and there's still a love of it. That's amazing.
They're good, and they look good, to our mutual point about how young 60 is today compared to 30 years ago.
Yeah. And it's not by mistake. Yeah. Listen, I work out every day. I moisturize. I wear sunscreen. I want to make sure that my outside feels like it matches my inside.
Yeah.
It's to the best of my ability. I personally, no plastic surgery or anything like that, just for men, maybe. I want the outside to match the inside. I want to look in a mirror and see what I think is the representation of who I am. And for those that don't, that's okay too. But that's what's cool about our generation. We finally said, no, a woman doesn't have to cut off her hair at 40. What the hell was that?
Yeah.
That used to be a thing.
Yeah. I mean,
You couldn't
well, no,
be 45 years old and have your hair past your shoulders as a woman. That's unheard of.
Yeah, I know it's a totally different world in that way. And that's where, I mean, like I was partially raised by my grandmother and she passed at 63. I remember thinking, well, there must be, actually, on that note, there must be something to it other than just the physical appearance. There must be something to it because we're not only looking better, we're actually physically active, we're living longer, even though I don't know if the statistics back that up, but I know like, so many people in their mid 70s now that are still actively flying around doing business all the time. And that just before you would have been sitting in a rocking chair at 65. It's just not the same thing.
I remember like grandparents, older aunts and uncles, not my mom. My mom will forever be young. She's an anomaly. The woman's nuts. I love it. But I remember my in-laws saying things like, you guys go do that. That's for you young people. The old people are going to stay home. And now I look back, I'm like, they were 40 when they said that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So they embraced this prospect of aging. It was an expectation, so they were okay with it, or at least they allowed it to happen. I'm going down swinging. I'm going to fight it every step of the way. And the good news is, it's not even a hard fight.
Yeah,
I'm not struggling to maintain a Toys R Us kid attitude. I still play with my toys.
Is Toys R Us still around, or are they bankrupt now? I remember
they're still around. They're opening new stores again. That it's not just us that want that world back. There is a significant percentage of Gen Z who aren't getting rid of cell phones, but they're going back to flip phones. They're going back to using them for just talking.
Which that would make the world a better place right there, just that alone.
No, I'll say better use of existing technology is what we need to strive for. And a clearer understanding that the manipulation that's allowed has to stop.
Yeah.
On the back end of it, our phones shouldn't be spying on us. And I know they say they don't do it. I don't buy it. I'm sorry. You and I can talk about a trip to Barbados. I promise you I'll get an ad tomorrow.
Oh, Garen, no.
I know they're like, we don't do that. You do that. There's no way you don't do that. It's being done. We need to legislate for the technology that's out there. The algorithms doing what they're doing to our kids. There needs to be a consequence.
We did
But
an episode
parents
on that.
and adults have to police better. The phone cannot become a babysitter any more than the TV shouldn't have necessarily been one for us. Our parents left us alone, but said, God forbid you stay inside all day. I want you outside. Don't be on. I remember my parents telling me that. I don't want you on TV all day. Go outside. It's a beautiful day. We weren't allowed to be babysat by the television.
Well, it's true. And that's the biggest thing that's missing now. Well, let me transition a little bit because I don't want to make you on. I could talk to you about this stuff all day, but I don't want to have you on here for two. So you've built a beautiful channel. You've got explosive growth. Well, I didn't even really dive in to ask you, how does it feel when you decide you want to do this? You have that initial organic reaction, just kind of playing around with it during the pandemic. When you start having consistent videos go viral, and you've got, is it hundreds of millions of views, or are you more than 1 billion views across all platforms?
On a good month, I'll get 50 million views in a month.
Wow. How does that feel to be, because that's
I don't think about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't even enter into the equation. I mean, I do this for a living business standpoint. If my views drop to 10 million on Facebook instead of 40 million in a month, I'll be like, all right, what's going on? And sometimes it's Facebook being Facebook. It's a lot of AI is running what it allows to happen right now, and it's getting it wrong a lot of the time. And a lot of creators are finding that. And they're like, wait a minute, it's flagging me for being unoriginal when it's me. But sometimes if it's you speaking on every video, Facebook thinks maybe you're not sharing original content because you keep sharing the same guy.
Interesting.
It's me. So things happen, but I only consider the numbers from a business standpoint. Never in my mind do I think that people have seen me, hundreds of thousands of times on any particular video, or the Mad Dog video you were referencing probably cross-platform. That one video alone is probably 20 million.
Wow.
doesn't enter into my thinking at all, I guess, is the short answer.
No, that's well, and that's an interesting thing that we've gotten to experience as a generation as well, to where a lot of things we're talking about is both good and bad, because there used to be a barrier between quote unquote celebrity and people that weren't, and there was kind of a step that you had to go through, and I remember rooting, like I would find actors or musicians that I liked that were kind of unknown. I remember John Cusack when he first came around. Like I just really loved John Cusack, and I would root for him to succeed throughout the process. And now any of us can be as it blurs the line between what's a celebrity and what's not. And I think it's a good thing in a way, because it allows us all to have our voices out there, and we can be heard and we can engage. And you don't have to, like we were talking about earlier with Islands in the Stream, you don't have to just accept whatever they're telling us is good. We can decide for ourselves. So that's good, but it also is confusing to me genuinely what the protocol is. And anyway, thoughts on that? I'm rambling a little bit here. I'm probably not making
No, I know what you're saying. They call it a para-celebrity status is what they're saying, because we're more accessible. I've got people that I used to follow, for lack of a better term, in my youth. There was nothing to follow, but they, like you said, with John Cusack, Mark Wahlberg follows me on Instagram. I remember watching Clerks, and the cast of Clerks, Dante and his girl, they follow me on Instagram. I've had conversations with them. I'm a huge fan of the Wonder Years. I've had conversations with the actor that played Paul. He follows me on social media. So, and I've got more followers than any of those people I mentioned, and yet they're celebrities and I'm not. So it's not just a followership that creates celebrity. It's something more to that. But I think that's changing. Yeah. That being said, my level of whatever you want to call it is a lot more accessible. You can message me and I try to respond to as many as I can. I'm vastly outnumbered, but people are always like, oh, I didn't expect you would reply.
But it's a unique thing. And like another become a friend of mine that I've interviewed, that's a big YouTube presence. He has a sports channel. And when I interviewed him, he was talking about what a big fan of Jim Rome he was.
Yeah.
And now he gets 10x the views that Jim Rome gets. And so your point about the Wonder Years, by the way, that would be a killer interview for you to do, you and the Wonder Years cast. That would be,
and that's it. So I'm starting to do things in real time. In July, I'm heading to Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm moderating panels for the Fanboy Expo there. And, they're bringing people to the convention like Eric Estrada, and Larry Wilcox, John and Ponch from Chips. Chris Atkins is going to be there. The cast of Charlie's Angels. I mean, it goes on and on. And I get to be on stage with some of these people and actually interview the people I loved watching as a kid.
That's awesome.
It's an incredible feeling. And I get to feel like I'm a representation of a generation doing that. And that started because I went to one of these cons and there was like this 22-year-old woman who was great at what she did. She truly was. But she was a 22-year-old Irish woman that was moderating the panel of the Goonies. And I'm like, with all due respect.
Does this make sense? Yeah.
She knew her stuff. God bless her. She knew her. But still, like, if you're representing the Goonies, for the love of God, put somebody up there that's old enough to have watched it the first time around.
Yeah.
Not that the kids shouldn't keep watching it, but to interview a Goonies reunion, there shouldn't be a 22-year-old moderating the panel. So I've been reaching out, and some of the people that are running these conventions, like, you know what, you've got a very good point.
Well, and to kind of the point of what we're talking about, and then I'll wrap it up with talking about some of the stuff you've got coming up here. But it's interesting because you see a lot of the people like Mark Wahlberg, for an example, and a bunch of other celebrities that are trying to transition and catch up, I feel like, to the YouTube crowd. And it almost feels like in some ways, especially maybe even 2 years ago, more so than it is right now, just perception-wise to me, that the digital mediums are becoming bigger than the Hollywood mediums. Do you feel like?
Yes, and that's coming down to two reasons for it. One is eyes and two is money. And one leads to the other. If you watch commercials on television, for instance, talking about Hollywood, traditional Hollywood, aside from pharma commercials or pain medication or things geared towards baby boomers predominantly, they're the last set of eyes routinely on television. So that's where the ad spend is going for TV. The kinds of commercials you and I grew up watching that we will remember forever, gum commercials, soda, they're few and far between. But if you go to social media, if you go to your YouTube channel, if you go to Instagram, if you go to Facebook, inundated with ads. because they know that's where the eyes are. So because that's where the ads are, that's where the eyes are, that's where the money is, it's growing faster.
And then you got a lot of content creators like Theo Vaughn just recently financed, made his own, and making their own Hollywood movies too.
Yeah. And even Gen Z, there's a couple filmmakers that just crushed at the theater, coming from YouTube so it's going to go full circle. It's all a good thing. It's part of the creative process. You mentioned that it can be anyone at any time right now. That doesn't make it easy. There is lightning in a bottle. There is luck. There is all of that. I've got young kids that would kill to be, and they're like, how did you get to be a YouTuber? And I'm like, I don't think I am. I'm like, no, you are.
I know. Yeah, that's the thing. Well,
and I'm like,
when
okay.
do you become officially a YouTuber? How do you classify it?
I don't know. I'll let you know. They pay me. I mean, I make an income off of YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. It's weird and wonderful and amazing, and I'm blessed and I'm lucky. And the reason I reply to as many as I can is because I realize that there's a lot of luck there, and I don't ever not want to be grateful for it.
Well said, Mike. That's one of the most beautiful things about the whole humility of the whole thing. I think that's what people connect with it as opposed to Hollywood. And like I said, both for good or for bad, it used to be so separated, like, wow, these celebrities are like aliens. They're not us.
And still to this day, you can't go without seeing a celebrity being engaged by a fan, and they pull out their fan, and the fan pulls, and everyone's like, well, give them their privacy. I've gotten to the point now where recognition, for some reason, not as much at home, which I'm happy about. I don't get recognized where I live as often, but we went to Disney and it was dozens and dozens of people. I'll be walking the floor of any convention, whether people know I'm there or not. And I play up the part. I'll wear the clothes they're used to seeing me, and I'll have my baseball cap on purposely. That's a Bills cap, or, some people are used to seeing me. So I want to be recognizable in those instances, but even just bartending locally, when I was still doing that, people would run to the bar because they heard my voice and they're like, wait a minute. I know you. But I never have I not been happy to give a handshake or a hug or take a picture. And my kids are like, doesn't it bother you? And I'm like, no. Well, they're like, celebrities don't like it. I go, well, I'm not a celebrity. I'm just one of us that happens to be able to have a bigger platform or channel to share our thoughts. What I'm sharing isn't mine, it's ours.
That's, again, to the authenticity and the humility of it. I think that's what draws people in, because you feel that connection of the genuine sincerity and how much you care, and then how much we care as a result as fans. For me, it's been interesting, and this is something I'm curious when I talk to people that have the size of the following that you do. So I kind of got lucky with the LinkedIn algorithm to where I have about 2 million people in my groups on LinkedIn that I hit early on. Now LinkedIn's like a ghost town. It's like I picked the wrong one because nobody cares about LinkedIn. But I experienced it a little bit, but that was different because they weren't engaged with me and like video content. It was just my groups. So I got to experience a bit, but as I've been playing around with the YouTube algorithm a little bit, I had the thought the other day, I'm like, as a small channel, if I upload a video that sucks, I can delete it and it doesn't matter. If I had a big channel like yourself or some of my other friends, you really can't do that, right? Because if you put it out there, you've got so many eyeballs on it, it kind of has to be top notch. Or am I crazy in thinking that?
I mean, it depends on what you're asking. I think part of the authenticity is, sometimes it's just me staring at the camera and being goofy or silly or stupid or whatever. And it's okay. If it's not getting a lot of interaction, if it's not getting a lot of engagement, the algorithm makes sure not a lot of eyes see it. Yeah. Now, the other half of that is there's stuff out there in the multiverse, in the mediaverse, that gets a lot of engagement, gets a lot of comments, but it's negative, and I hate that gets pushed out. Yeah. I don't think I've ever put out a piece of rage bait. I don't think I've ever put out something that I wanted to make people angry in order to raise engagement. And you'll never see it. It doesn't make me happy to do that. If you're talking about, am I worried about ever putting something out that I'll delete because I'm like, I shouldn't have said that. I felt that before, but I'm also very cognizant of the fact that you can't delete anything. So if I get a little thought in my head that maybe what I think is funny is going to hurt someone, I just don't do it. Yeah. If the thought goes in my head, even if I might be overly sensitive, it's never my intent to hurt people. So I'm like, if I think, maybe that joke will make someone feel bad, there's enough to talk about that I don't have to push that out there. I'll say one thing that I don't like. You mentioned John Cusack.
Yeah.
I've had an opportunity to meet John Cusack. I've had an
okay.
opportunity to meet Dean Cain, John Schneider from the Dukes of Hazzard, Carrie Elwes from Carrie Ules, I think is how I pronounce it, Princess Bride, all people with very, very big political beliefs on both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah.
I want to shake their hand. I want to talk to them. I'm excited because I'm a huge fan of The Princess Bride, because I'm a huge fan of Say Anything, because I'm a huge fan of the Superman series, because I'm a huge fan of the Dukes of Hazzard. It's not because I aspire to any of their political beliefs. And if I'm being honest, I really don't care about their political beliefs.
Yeah.
What they do when that door closes, as long as they're, that's their. I focus more on what unites us than divides us. And every now and then I'll post a picture meeting someone like that. And unfortunately, one side or the other will start in, well, now we know. I'm like, now you don't know. What do you know?
Well, that's interesting. So you kind of, because I do that, I'll just say that. I make it a point, and people, I'm from Alabama, I'm wearing a camo hat, so I think people probably assume whatever they assume based on the stereotypes with that. But I've also lived in the San Francisco Bay Area for 20 years. So
there you go.
I make it a point to not get political at all. So you make that a conscious effort?
It is a conscious. I will not. You will never, ever, ever. The only video that I came close to being political is you'll see me in my Reagan Bush t-shirt, because I grew up, that was, Ronald Reagan was me being 10 years old to me being 18 years old. Yeah. So it's a pop culture part of my life. But midway through that video, I switched and I'm wearing a Clinton Gore t-shirt, because guess what? That was 18 through my 20s, and also iconic part of my life in terms of history and pop culture. So I said, if you think seeing me wear a Reagan Bush t-shirt tells you anything, wait 5 minutes, I'll wear a Clinton Gore one. It tells you nothing.
I wonder if that's a unique Generation X thing then, because it seems like now boomers and the new generation, it seems like, are very happy to tell you where they stand. Yeah.
Yep. Nope.
So,
the only reason I have my beliefs and not yours is because I lived every day of my life and not every day of yours. That's all. Well, I didn't live your life. That's why we don't have exactly the same beliefs. And you know what? That's an amazing thing. That means I can learn something from you, and hopefully vice versa. That's all.
Love it, brother. All right. Well, so you kind of already alluded to a little bit, but I want to close with talking about what you've got coming up here. So you've got this huge following. You've got a content strategy that works. What's the next step? Do you keep going with the same things? You're branching off into interviews, it sounds like.
I love the connection that I've been able to gain with the followers that I have. So that's not changing. I don't ever want to live in a world where I'm not pushing out content, because I love learning from it. And I'm not even close to being out of memories or stories. So that doesn't stop. I like going to these cons because now I'm face to face with people that I'm telling them, okay, I'll be at this place. You can come and see these great celebrities we grew up watching. And oh, by the way, I'm here too, for whatever that's worth. That's fun for me. There are other things that will shape out as they come. I'll just say that Hollywood has noticed where media is going. So there's certain aspects of television and such that, different producers have reached out to me at times saying, hey, do you think this would be a fit, or do you think that would be a fit? And I'm really cautious. But there have been a couple times where it's come close, and it's close now for something. And we'll just see how it goes. But you never know.
Toscano teaser exclusive here. That sounds interesting.
That's all I can say. And it's but I don't know is the answer to your question. I'll go where life takes me. But I'm not ever not going to pop up on your YouTube feed. And if I've disappeared from your Facebook feed, from your YouTube feed, from your TikTok feed, from your Instagram, it's because the algorithm has chosen for whatever reason that you don't want to see me anymore. But if you go to my page, you'll see I've still been making 2 to 5 posts a day, every day.
Love it, brother. Well, I want to let you get out of here because I really appreciate your time. But any closing thoughts anything I haven't asked you that I should have asked you, or anything you'd like to discuss that we haven't?
There are so many places in this world to get angry, to get political, to get divisive. Find those corners of the technology we have, of the internet, of whatever it is. Gen X we grew up without a safe space. Even our playgrounds were dangerous. The world is becoming a place where that is increasingly the situation. So find those places to maintain good mental health, and to smile and to laugh, and realize that there is so much more that we all have in common than what divides us, even though the world at large wants to convince us otherwise. Be good to each other.
Love it, brother. Well, he is GenXJono. If you somehow are listening to this and are not already a follower or subscriber, please check him out on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and anywhere else where fun stuff is done. And John, thank you again for doing this. I appreciate it, Steve.